Los invito ahora a seguir con la charla de Vladimir Despotovich, que es investigador postdoctoral de la Facultad de Ciencias y Tecnología y Medicina de la Universidad de Luxemburgo, y en el Departamento de Ciencias Computacionales, y que nos va a hablar, la charla es en inglés, sobre la detección de la enfermedad de Parkinson por medio del habla y de algunos nuevos resultados que ha tenido utilizando técnicas de mixturas de gaussianas. Ahora...
Good afternoon. Let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Untitled Chapter. I work at the University of Luxembourg, Faculty of Science, Technology and Medicine at the Department of Computer Science. And I'm going to talk today about our experiences on the use of voice as a potential biomarker for Parkinson's disease. So first, let me give a brief introduction. I'm going to talk today about the tasks and motivation behind our research. I'm going to present the major speech disorders that appear with Parkinson's disease. Then I will present in more details system design for detection of Parkinson's disease and for estimating the stage of Parkinson's disease, which includes data collection, feature extraction and selection, and machine learning models used for prediction. Finally, I'm going to present our current results and give some outlooks and ideas for the future work. The major tasks that we're dealing with are the identification of Parkinson's disease from speech or automatic discrimination between Parkinson's disease patients and healthy subjects based only on speech without using any additional medical information, and also automatic estimation of Parkinson's disease from the speech signal. The motivation comes from the fact that recording the speech is non-invasive, it's low cost, it's very easy to use.
Alejandro, creo que se cortó el audio cuando silenciaste el micrófono.
This is indeed one of the earliest Parkinson's disease symptoms, although often overlooked by both health practitioners and patients in the early stages of disease. The speech disorders that appear are hypophonia or low speech intensity, dysphonia, which is manifested as excessively breathy, harsh and rough speech, and this prosodia, which is manifested by a flat, monotonous speech, and also by alterations in both speech rate and variation of pitch. Sometimes also it is manifested as imprecise consonant articulation. In this slide, you can see the overall system design. We start with data collection, and various local tasks are used to collect speech data, such as recordings of sustained vowels, diadotokinetic task, spontaneous or running speech. After the voice is recording, it needs to be labeled, and different kinds of labels are used for different tasks. For example, for disease identification, we simply label each of the speech samples with binary values, depending on the fact whether it is caused by a healthy participant or a patient. And in case we want to track disease progress, we need to use a scale that estimates the current stage of disease. After the corpus is labeled, speech needs to be preprocessed, and these involve steps such as noise suppression or voice activity detection. And then afterwards, various dysphonia features are extracted from the speech signal and further led into machine learning models that are used for prediction for one of these two tasks. We need to take into account that the vocal tasks that we design need to provide sufficient information for the machine learning algorithm, but on the other hand, they should not be tiresome for the participants of the study, bearing in mind their medical condition and their age. We know that most of the patients are elderly people. So let's briefly explain each of the vocal tasks. Sustain vowel phonations, assume recording of phonation of sustained vowel. Typically, this is a vowel at a comfortable loudness in speech. Sometimes you can also record some other vowels in order to account for different positions of the vocal articulators during the production of different vowels. The phonation should be as constant as possible and as long as possible on a single breath, and sometimes it is also repeated at twice the level of the initial loudness. This task is usually used to evaluate the phonation quality. Diadochokinetic task assumes the very fast repetition of the syllable frame, which is contained of one plosive, like T, for example, or T, and one vowel, like A. A simple example can be pataka or pututu, and this is done as fast and as steady as possible. Diadochokinetic tasks requires very rapid movement of vocal articulators such as lips or tongue or soft palate, and reveals the patient's ability to retain the speech rate or the intelligibility of the speech. The other approach is to use the running speech, and these are the recordings of some standard speech phrases which are read aloud by the participant. And for this task, we define sentences that carry some important lexical information. Another possibility is to use spontaneous speech tasks, which are unfortunately often neglected in studies related to automatic diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. Although it is shown that speech disruptions can be more frequent in spontaneous speech than in controlled tasks. So patients can actually perform much better in these repeated controlled tasks than in spontaneous speech. We can also use semi-spontaneous tasks, which is restricted to description of some stimulus. These may be stimulus figures or some predefined stories, and after given the stimulus, the participant is asked to give their opinion about either a figure they see or the story they.
Perdón, perdón, no se está escuchando, ¿no es cierto? Quería saber si ustedes querían que hiciera algún cambio, Paulo, por favor.
Se escucha, pero es desde tu micrófono, no es el audio, digamos.
¿Y qué tendría que hacer? ¿Pasar al sistema? Debiera pasar al sistema, debiera pasar al sistema.
No sé bien cómo era
¿Quién está a
explicarlo.
cargo del Zoom, por favor? Si me puede dar un...
Alejandro,
Sí.
El tema es, lo tendrías que compartir a través de la PC y no utilizar tu micrófono. O sea, podrías
Bueno,
desconectar el
entonces
audio del micrófono,
pongo bocinas internas, perfecto, entonces
claro,
hago
y
así.
probar con el audio de salida normal de la PC y ahí probamos a ver si se escucha.
Perfecto.
It affects the ability to control the vocal cords. And this is indeed one of the earliest Parkinson's disease symptoms.
Yo escucho igual que antes.
Often overlooked by both health practitioners and patients in the early stages of disease. The speech disorders that appear are
No, ahí se sigue escuchando muy bajo, Alejandro.
Y el audio no mejoró.
Bueno,
Hola,
hola, ¿se
hola, te
escucha?
escucho ahora.
Bueno, sí, si le pueden pasar el audio a Vladimir, así él puede seguir él con la presentación mejor.
Sí, ahí está habilitado, Vladimir.
Bueno, perfecto.
So hello everybody, should I share my screen and talk or?
Well, if you have the slide there, you can't present in your computer.
Okay, let me just find it.
Excuse me.
I'm not sure what was the problem. Can you see my screen now?
Okay.
Okay.
Let me briefly introduce myself.
Okay, sorry, it's a video, so I want to run it without the audio signal. Oh, sorry. I thought that it's going to go like a video. So maybe I just need to delete all the audio signals. There is probably a better way to do it, but at the moment I cannot think of a better way. The quality of the audio was good when I was checking it, so I don't know what was the problem. So I hope you see the presentation. You can hear me? Can you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can see and hear you.
Thank you very much, and sorry for the delay. I'm going to try to be a bit faster, so we are not so late. I'm going to talk today about investigating the voice as a potential biomarker for Parkinson's disease. My name is Vladimir Despotovic, and yes, as you probably have seen, I work at the University of Luxembourg at the Faculty of Science, Technology and Medicine, Department of Computer Science. And well, today I'm going to talk about the speech disorders that are present in Parkinson's disease, then about the system design of our research model that we have created, starting from data collection, feature extraction, feature selection, and machine learning models that we have applied. I'm going to present you some preliminary results that we have at the moment, and finally, I'm going to give some ideas for our future work. So the main tasks that we are dealing here with are the identification of Parkinson's disease from the speech signal, or discrimination between healthy persons and patients based only on their speech, so without any additional medical information. And the second task is tracking the disease progress, again using only speech. The motivation comes from the fact that recording the speech is non-invasive, it's low cost, it's very easy to use, so patients can use it from their homes. So it's easily applicable for remote monitoring applications in telemedicine. There are different speech disorders that appear in Parkinson's disease, and indeed speech disorders are one of the earliest symptoms of Parkinson's disease, even though they are sometimes at the early stages overlooked by both the patients and their medical practitioners. The major speech disorders are hypophonia or low speech intensity, dysphonia, which is usually manifested by harsh or rough or excessively breathy speech, then dysprosody, which is reflected by a flat speech, but also by some alterations in both the speech rate and pitch, and sometimes also in imprecise consonant articulation. Here you can see the basic system design of our model. So basically, the speech needs to be first collected from both the patients and from the healthy participants, and different kind of vocal tasks can be performed here. Most often these are sustained vowel phonations, but also can be diadochokinetic tasks, spontaneous or running speech. After the data is collected, it should be properly labeled, and the labels depend on the particular task. So if it is the disease identification task, then the labels are simply so the healthy participant or the person with the Parkinson's disease. But in case the task is to track the progress of disease, then the labels itself are some kind of rating of the disease on a given scale, and there are several different scales that can be used for this purpose. After the corpus is labeled, there are data pre-processing steps, which usually involve removing or at least attenuating the noise, then also removing the silent parts of the speech. Afterwards, the features, relevant acoustic features are extracted from the speech signal. And in case there are many of these features, then also feature selection or feature reduction might be applied as well before entering these features into an appropriate machine learning model that will perform either the task of disease identification, which is basically a classification task, or disease progress tracking, which in our case here is defined as a regression task. So I would talk briefly about the different types of phonations that are collected for the particular models, and these are sustained vowel phonation. Typically, the participants are asked to phonate a prolonged vowel A at a comfortable loudness and speech, and then to repeat these at twice the level of the initial loudness. And they should hold their voice as steady as possible and as long as possible on a single breath, but at least for around 10 seconds. And usually this vocal task is used to evaluate the phonation quality. Now, typically the vowel A is used, but basically one can use additional vowels as well to account for different positions of the vocal articulators during the production of the speech. So for the diadochokinetic task, the participants are asked to repeat very fast the combination of a plosive and a vowel, and typical combination is a train of syllables pataka. So they should repeat pataka, pataka, pataka as soon, as fast and as steady as possible. And this task is used to evaluate the ability of the speaker to move the vocal tract articulators such as lips or tongue or soft palate. Another possibility is to have a running speech. And usually these are predefined sentences that carry some important lexical information and that should be read aloud by a particular speaker. And finally, a spontaneous speech, which unfortunately is sometimes neglected in studies that are related to automatic diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. It was actually shown that speech disruptions are more frequent in spontaneous speech tasks than in the control tasks, and that actually patients can adjust very well when they have some repeated tasks to do and can perform much better than in the spontaneous speech. Another possibility would be to have a semi-spontaneous speech tasks where the participants are given some stimulus either by figures or images or by some stories, and then they have to give a feedback in their own words to this stimulus. And in this way, articulation, breathing, resonance, or prosody can be estimated. There are various acoustic features that can be extracted from the speech signal, and these are, for example, features that describe the phonation, such as, for example, fundamental frequency or jitters that measures variability of the fundamental frequency from one to another cycle of opening and closure of the glottis. Then there are features that describe the speech intensity, such as, for example, shimmer features that measure the variability of the amplitude from one to another cycle. Then the features that describe the speech quality, such as harmonic to noise or noise to harmonic features. Features that describe speech fluency, such as total speech and pause time, the rate of the speech, and the number of voice break during the speech. And various non-linear dynamics features that... Okay, this is... Okay, this was my audio. In general, these are the different nonlinear dynamics features that can be used to assess the nonlinear phenomena during the production of the speech signal. Also, there are several publicly available data sets for assessing the Parkinson's disease from the speech signal. One of the most used is Parkinson's disease detection dataset collected at the University of Oxford by a Max Little group, and it contains 31 subjects, out of which 23 are patients and 8 are healthy subjects, and the time of diagnosis is from 0 to 28 years. Unfortunately, this dataset is rather small and contains only around 200 recordings of sustained vowel phonations of the vowel A, and there are 22 dysphonia features that are pre-extracted from the speech. So unfortunately, the speech itself is not available with this dataset. Another dataset is the first dataset here is actually used for discriminating between the patients and healthy subjects, and the second dataset is collected by the same group, but this time it contains only Parkinson's disease patients, and all of them are in early stage of Parkinson's disease, so not more than 5 years from the time of diagnosis. And this one is used actually to assess the stage of disease. The number of recordings is much larger. It has around 6,000 of recordings, again, of the sustained vowel phonations. And these are recorded over 20 different sessions where 6 phonations were recorded per one session. And again, speech, unfortunately, is not available here, but there are 16 features, acoustic features, plus age, and gender as additional information included with the speech features. And in order to assess the stage of the disease for this data set, the Unified Parkinson Disease Rating Scale, or UPDRS scale, is used, and the total scale is used, which contains 31 items divided into 3 subscales, but also only the motor UPDRS subscale is extracted as well, because it is assumed that the motor subscale is mostly related to disorders of speech, because the ability of the vocal articulators to move them is affected by the motor ability, which is actually presented in motor UPDRS scale. The third data set that is publicly available is actually the most comprehensive one. It contains over 65,000 recordings of sustained vowel phonations spoken by over 1,000 of patients and over 5,500 of healthy subjects. This is actually a multimodal data set. So beside the voices, it also contains walking activity. The recordings are initially made by mobile application, and again, except for the speech recordings, there are walking tasks where the participants are asked to walk while holding their mobile phone in order to assess their movements. Then there is a tapping task where they are asked to tap the mobile phone upon some stimulus, and there is a memory task where the task here is actually to repeat images in a particular order in order to assess the short-term spatial memory. And finally, there is a Spanish speech corpus data set, which contains around 50 patients and 50 healthy subjects with the time of diagnosis, which goes from 0 to 43 years. And it contains all of the types of recordings that I mentioned. So the sustained vowel phonations, diadochokinetic task, running, and spontaneous speech. Unfortunately, this data set is, well, the question is whether it's available or not. There is no information about its public availability. And recently I have contacted the first author of this paper, so we should have a meeting soon, and I will see whether he's willing also to share the data. The first 3 data sets are publicly available. So the task that I was working on was either the identification of Parkinson's disease from speech, and for this I was using in our pilot study the Parkinson's disease detection data set collected at the University of Oxford. And the second task was the Parkinson's disease progress tracking, again from the speech signal. And again, I was using the data set collected by the Max Little group at the University of Oxford. And the model that we were testing was the Gaussian processes, both for the classification task for identification of Parkinson's disease from speech, and also for the regression task for estimating the progress of disease. And also we were using several baseline machine learning models. So in general, Gaussian processes are completely defined by the mean and by the covariance function. And especially the choice of the covariance function or the kernel is important. And if we also use the automatic relevance determination kernels, they actually contain hyperparameter. One of their hyperparameters can be trained for each of the individual features, which is, well, very cozy because in this case, we can actually estimate the importance of each of the individual features. This is actually the parameter Ri given here. And by, estimating the importance of each of the features, we can perform very effectively also the feature selection. So the first results are given here for the task of identifying the Parkinson disease from the Parkinson disease detection dataset. And the first results are presented using the complete set of acoustic features, which contains 22 features in total. As mentioned before, we were using Gaussian processes with different kernels, but also as baseline models, we were using support vector machines and various ensemble models such as boosting, bagging, and random forests. And for measuring the performance, we were using the accuracy, which is simply the ratio between the number of correct classifications and the total number of classifications. Sensitivity, which evaluates the ability of the model to correctly classify only the patient cases, and specificity, which evaluates the ability of the model to classify only the healthy cases. And we can see from the results that, well, all the models give pretty good accuracy, but Gaussian processes, well, performed from 1 up to 4% points better than the baseline models. For the sensitivity, we have even much larger improvement with the sensitivity going up to 88%, while the specificity is very good for both the baseline models and Gaussian processes. The next step was to use the Gaussian processes with automatic relevance determination kernels in order to estimate the importance of each of the particular features. And here on the X scale, we can see all the features, and the feature weights are given on the Y scale. And actually, what we have already assessed in advance, we have seen that many of these features were mutually correlated. Probably some of them could be excluded from the data set without affecting the results. And actually, these measuring of importance confirmed this assumption. And as we can see here, not all the features are equally important. And there are 5 features that are dominantly important, such as fundamental frequency, harmonic to noise ratio, and also 3 nonlinear dynamics features. So what we have done is that we have actually excluded all features but these 5. And not only that we achieved models that performed faster, but also the performance improved. So the accuracy improved by around 2% points, as well as the sensitivity, while specificity stayed at a pretty high level. So the second task was the task of estimating the stage of the disease using the total UPDRS scale and motor UPDRS scale. And we were performing these on the Parkinson telemonitoring dataset with a complete set of 18 features, 16 dysphonia features, plus age and gender. And for measuring the performance, we were using mean absolute rate. which actually gives the absolute value of the error. And for the total UPDRS scale, we have a scale from 0 to 176, where 0 means no disorder, and the maximum number means the highest disorder. So we can see that actually an error of 2 on the scale of 0 from 0 to 176 is quite small error. And the second measure is the coefficient of determination, which basically is a number between 0 and 1 or 0 and 100%, and it represents the square of the correlation between the predicted value and the ground truth value, and the values that are closer to 100% give better models or explain better models. So we can see that Gaussian processes performed by several percent points measured by the coefficient determination better than the baseline models, and the similar results we can observe also for the motor UPDRS scale. Finally, we repeated estimating the feature importance for this particular data set, and we have found that 8 out of 18 features were the most important. And what we have found here is also that jitter features are more important than the shimmer features, which assumes that variability in the frequency is more important than the variability in the amplitude for determining the stage of disease. We also tried to exclude age and gender from the study and to work only with acoustic features, but then the results dropped drastically to only around 65% for the coefficient of determination, assuming that all those speech features can be good indicators whether the person is healthy or suffers from Parkinson's disease. When estimating the stage of disease, it's a bit more difficult task when using only speech features. Finally, we have run our models again using only the subset of 8 features, and we see that the results did not change much. So there is a minor improvement over the previous model with the full set of 18 features. But the more important thing here is that the models are simpler. Finally, we are soon going to start a collection of our own speech data set from Parkinson's disease patients. And there is a big study at the University of Luxembourg where already they're collecting different biomarkers from a cohort of 800 patients and 800 healthy subjects. And we applied for funding, and in case we are granted, then we are going to start collecting the speech as well from these patients. They're already collecting gait, so it will be possible to have multimodal assessment. So this is one of our aims for the future work. Besides the speech, we want to use modalities such as gait, but also handwriting, which is also affected with Parkinson's disease patients. And at some point, it might be also possible if we would have speech from other neurological diseases that might manifest with similar symptoms as Parkinson's disease to perform also the multimodal differential diagnosis of various neurological disorders using speech or maybe also additional modalities as digital biomarkers. So thank you very much. Sorry for the problems with the presentation and the delay, and yeah, I'm open for your questions.
No, excuse me, Vladimir, I had to test the system before the talk. Thank you very much, Vladimir, for your participation. ¿Tienen alguna pregunta para Vladimir? Good. I have an answer with respect the. I suppose that sometimes prosodic features as rhythm or syllable duration. I don't know which is the importance as features in Parkinson disease.
Well, prosodic features are as well used as estimators of Parkinson's disease, and there are works that show that these features might be used very successfully for estimating, and we are also considering extracting these features as well when we are going to have our own data set. The problem here was that basically we did not have speech as such, so we were working with features which were already pre-extracted from the speech signal. Having our own data set will give us much more flexibility to perform feature extraction that we think it's the best. One of the data sets that I have mentioned here, Empower, actually contains also the speech signals, and we are at the moment experimenting with this data set. It is very large, so as mentioned, it has over 60,000 of speech recordings, but unfortunately the quality of the recordings is very low because they were collected using mobile phones, so in non-controlled conditions from patients' homes, and also you could hear background noises, so you can hear somebody using a vacuum cleaner, or you can hear very loud voices in the background, so there needs to be a significant amount of noise suppression in order to be able to use this data, and we are currently trying to work on this. But you are right, prosodic features can be as well very valuable for estimating the Parkinson's disease from the speech.
Thank you very much, Vladimir. I don't know if the people have another answer. Well,
Damos por finalizado, cerramos.
sí. Well, we will write to you to continue with the conversation and dialogue. Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. I suppose that this presentation will be see for another people in the future. Okay. Well, very interesting presentation. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Thank you very much.